Hallo, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khushamdi, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen, Jumma Mubarak.
Bakhair Agile, Ni Hao, Tuna Shumme, Washmale, Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Ola, Boyor, Privyet, Kaifahal, Halish Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Vasalan, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Suabiab, Balli Gareaya, Washmale, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into PTB Boil. Today it happens to be Friday, so Jumma Mubarak. With me, I have the very amazing, the very lovely, the very superb Shiza Hashmi, and me myself, Shahzad Ehsan Khan. Hello Shiza, how are you doing on a fine Friday morning over here in Islamabad on 2nd of October 2020?
Doing absolutely great, thank you for asking. I feel like the spirits are a little bit lifted since we are, of course, entering into a weekend.
Yep.
So I think we have a scale of the week.
Yeah.
So from Monday on, we do love our work, of course, but I feel like from Monday we are a little lazy, and Tuesday seems a little better, and from Wednesday again, with the spirits are lifted because then again we're into the weekend. But that's just what I believe. What about you?
Well, I think every day is a good day. You know, for me, I look forward to working as well. And, you know, while you were saying all of this, I think, you know, at the back of your head, you even knew that, okay, you know, people are going to judge you for what you're going to say.
I know, but a
yes.
lot of people really don't like. So here's the thing: ever since I was not doing this job, since I was a student or you know doing any other kind of thing, I did not like Mondays or generally just going into the week. But well, Alhamdulillah for everything we enjoy doing.
But
this,
yeah,
right?
you know, there's no way you can actually skip a Monday too as well, ladies and gentlemen. There's no way you can skip a Friday. So yeah, the morals are definitely a little more higher on Fridays as well. And it's because of the fact that people actually think about rejuvenating, going to different places and making sure that, you know, that they're going to have fun and relax and live their life as well. And I think that that's the message today as well, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure, since, you know, post-COVID, we have seen that, you know, that people, we've actually been requesting a lot of people to follow all the SOPs. So if you're going outside, please make sure that you follow all the SOPs as well. And please don't litter. Just yesterday, you know, I was actually passing by a food market and I could see peels or, you know, all over the place. And I was like, okay, you know, if you go to a fish market, that's what you're going to see. Fish everywhere. But, you know, obviously they put everything in a container, you know, it's not just lying on the road out there as well. So I think for everybody who's out there, please make sure that you don't litter and you follow all the SOPs as well. Wear your mask, keep your sanitizers with you, because you never know when things can get serious. And we really do not want another wave. I need to go back to the gym, you know, I need to keep on going to the gym as well. I cannot, in fact, the country cannot afford another lockdown. So please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you play an important role in making sure that we do not experience the second wave of COVID-19.
Well, really hope we don't, although some of the cases, of course, have been reported. Lately, the number is going up. But like Shahzad said, we can really control it. So please, everyone watching out there, be responsible.
Exactly.
So here's the thing. Again, we are on your TV screens like every other morning with these pink ribbons. And if you watched our show yesterday, you know that for the next few days, for the next few weeks, we are going to be observing Pinktober, which happens to be the entire month of October dedicated towards raising awareness about breast cancer. Now, breast cancer is the most common cancer among women worldwide also, but in Pakistan as well. And you told me yesterday that about 40,000 women annually alone in Pakistan die of breast cancer.
Exactly.
This is just I want to say a staggering statistics, Shahzad.
Exactly.
It's really hard. But one more thing, it's not only women who are affected by breast cancer, right?
Yes.
In some cases, men also develop breast cancer. And I was in conversation with the guest that we're shortly going to introduce, and he mentioned that he himself had 12 or more cases of men developing breast cancer, and he had to treat them. So I think as important as our discussion is going to be for females, it is even you know, equally important for men, first of all for themselves, and then second of all to be aware and educated for the females around them.
Exactly. Not just that, ladies and gentlemen, I think I would like to appreciate our channel head, Mr. Mazood Beg Saab, as well, because it's his vision. And, you know, from the previous month, he was like that, you know, we really need to be more focused on it as well, because within the South Asian countries, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has got the highest rate of breast cancer, or in men's case, I think it's chest cancer as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I think what we really need to do is that we really need to speak about prevention, because yesterday that's what we built up on as well. And this year the theme is becoming a better you, which says, or which entails about, or which talks about how you can actually reduce the chances of getting breast or chest cancer by 40% by just, you know, kind of picking up on healthy habits. And how to do so is something which we wanted to talk about. And yesterday, you know, since we were joined by the CEO of Pink Ribbon, so we couldn't ask him, you know, sort of medical questions or questions about oncology, because he happens to be one of those people who was raising awareness. So today we've actually got our hands onto a very wonderful and apt guests who will be speaking about this particular issue. But 1 out of every 9 women, ladies and gentlemen, are going to get breast cancer, unfortunately. Prevention is the key. Becoming a better you is the key. Adopting to a healthy lifestyle is the key. That's what we say. Well, let's see whether Dr. Saab is actually going to agree to it or not. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, very quickly before I introduce our guest as well, it is each and every individual's responsibility to spread the word, and it's because of the fact that, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot afford to lose our mothers, sisters, nieces, popos, and khalas as well, because they have given us a wonderful childhood. One, number two, they have been looking after us like nobody else can. So I think that for all those brothers and fathers, whoever's out there, we obviously have to be the support system, and we need to make sure that it's not stigmatized and not tabooed to talk about breast cancer, chest cancer in that case as well.
Brilliant.
So, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who happens to be the consultant medical oncologist at Shaukat Khanum Cancer Hospital as well. He is Dr. Hassan Shahriyar. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Ji, walaikum assalam. Thank you very much for having me on your show, and thank you for showing commitment to this great cause.
Thank you very much,
love
sir,
doing
and
that,
it's
and
wonderful to have you as well. Thank you very much for taking our time and coming all the way to Islamabad from Lahore as well. The pleasure is all ours as well. First of all, the very basic question which I need to ask is how important it is for a country like Pakistan to spread awareness on such an issue or a disease.
Yeah, I think it's a very pressing issue when it comes to cancer. This is the most commonest cancer in women, and it also exceeds by far the number of cancer that we see altogether.
All right.
So breast cancer should be on the top of our priority from a cancer treatment and prevention standpoint. You mentioned some of the statistics that 1 in 9 women will develop a cancer over a period of a lifetime. I think probably the statistics are even graver in Pakistan. It probably the number is less. I mean, these numbers are extrapolated from the Western data.
All right.
Okay.
And I think from what we are seeing at our institutions, we are seeing a much younger population coming to us. So I suspect that the incidence of cancer, unfortunately, is higher in women in Pakistan.
But,
So
thank you very much, sir, for correcting me over here as well, where you said that the numbers are more grave as well. But for me, I think it was alarming to know that, within the South Asian subcontinent as well, Pakistan has got the largest and the highest number as well. Right. But there's one more thing, and that is that we still, till date, we do not have a national cancer registry as well, where we're not sure of how many people are actually affected by cancer itself. So how do you think that, don't you think that it is a bigger and a griever problem to not even have a registry where we do not even know the data, we do not know what to do as well? Because, for whatever we are going to forecast, obviously it needs to be based on those statistics. So where are we? Are we in the air only, or we like, okay, shooting
and it's
stars?
not just about cancer. We don't have any medical records at all to speak of.
Right. Yeah. I think you have hit the real core issue, and I think this was also being discussed yesterday at the presidential ceremony where we were raising awareness about cancer. And one of the main I think points was that we need to have a national cancer registry where we can accumulate all the data and come out with actual figures which represent our population. At Shaukat Khanum we have a regional effort to develop that registry called Punjab Cancer Registry, which is the largest registry in Pakistan. We've already initiated the Northwest Cancer Registry, which includes KPK and Gilgit-Baltistan, Azad Kashmir area as well.
Amazing.
So the efforts are underway. But as our Dr. Faisal Sultan was also alluding to, that we see some hesitation from institution and collaboration in sharing their data with us. So I think we need some legislation of some sort where it will be mandatory that all the institutions who are reporting cancer, they report to a registry.
It's very confusing though, like why would some institution, but I think that's going to get political, so let's not go there. But sir, okay, so now we have to talk, we're all about awareness, right? So let's begin with the causes that might lead to developing the cancer at some stage in life. We know a few, we'll ask them and you do a yes and no and then add on if you know. So is it early menopause or early menstruation? You can answer it after the end, of course. And then is it it something to do with the lifestyle? Is it the food you eat? Is it alcohol consumption? Is it being heavyweight in each and every single thing that we've heard of? Is it true? And then if we're missing something, let us know.
Right. I think these are all the risk factors. So the answer is yes.
Right.
They all contribute some to your risk of developing a cancer.
Okay.
Having a risk factor does not mean that you will for sure develop a cancer.
You can
but-
prevent it.
Right. You can prevent it.
Okay.
Or your genes or your body, if you have a healthy body, it will take care of those risk factors or overcome those risk factors. But your every risk factor that you have, it adds to the chance of developing a cancer.
Okay.
So we need to minimize all these modifiable risk factors. I would just like to extend your
Yes, please.
discussion by saying that there are certain modifiable risk factors and there are unmodifiable risk factors.
Okay.
For example, our gender, we can't change that. Our family history, we can't change that. So those are the things that we have to deal with. But still, I feel there are a lot of things we can do to prevent, especially by focusing on these modifiable risk factors, such as lifestyle,
Right.
smoking, alcohol. These things can be, obesity, for example. That's I think it's a very important risk factor that is sometimes not highlighted as much.
Right. Before we move on, just I want you to elaborate on this point actually. So here's the thing: we're talking about Pakistani women generally, right now, and we know our society. So if I were to look at Pakistani women who consume alcohol or who smoke, hardly 1% or even less.
Right.
So what might be the risk factors in this particular region that are leading to such a large number of women developing
Right.
cancer?
Yeah, I think luckily we don't have that much high prevalence of those type of risk
Right,
factors in
right.
our population. I think that's absolutely correct. However, I think we do have obesity issues, we have lifestyle issues, we have dietary issues, and also again the data is not there, but environmental pollutants and
Okay.
toxins can also contribute to many cancers, not just breast cancer.
Oh.
So all of those things need to be looked at from an individual and from a community perspective.
All right.
Certain things you can do as an individual, but I think a larger scale effort on a community level would be
Definitely.
needed to improve.
Exactly.
our-
And adding on to the risk factors, sir, do you think that stress or anxiety can actually be one of the risk factors as well in this particular case?
Right. I mean, stress is oftentimes used as probable cause, but it's not truly scientifically proven that it
Okay.
has a very direct correlation
Yeah.
as we see with smoking or obesity. But stress does lower your immune system, especially if it's a chronic stress,
Yeah.
and that lowering of your immune system could lead to some type of a
So
issue.
it can happen.
Right.
Because over here we know, for example, we might not tend to agree, but obviously, it is a male-dominated society, and then people do have stresses, there are financial stresses. There are so many different sorts of stresses. I mean, we live in a country where the food's not organic, the first part. So I think that is one of the risk factors as well. But very quickly, since we are talking about prevention this year around, and prevention reduces the risk by 40%, I still remember, I think our school did a great job that when we were in school, our teachers would actually tell us which areas to touch and check whether there's a lump or not. So why can't we have such awareness campaigns? Why can't we still, till date, not speak about it? What are the early symptoms? What kind of differences are we going to feel in our body? And then, how can we prevent having breast cancer total?
Right. Just to add, sorry, I always add something to your question. I think this year around, I came across the campaign of Shaukat Khanum. This was all the female celebrities who were asking people to actually, self-analyze or self-detect
Yeah.
if there's a tumor. Also, is this a myth that if you have been exposed to radiations or X-rays throughout your life, is that a risk actually?
Right, radiation is a risk factor, but it depends on the dose of radiation
Okay.
that was received. So just an X-ray, chest X-ray is not
Once in your life doesn't
right,
matter.
it's not sufficient enough to cause a cancer.
Okay,
But somebody who had, say, another cancer and they received a lot of radiation to this area for the treatment, they are at risk later on in their life to develop breast cancer. Or, if there was any radiation incident or accident, like a nuclear reactor, which luckily we
haven't been exposed to.
Right. So
thankfully.
those type of radiations can certainly increase your risk for breast
All right.
cancer.
Okay.
And
now
coming back to my
Shazad's
question now.
Right. So you were talking about how we can prevent and what are the early signs.
And before we do that, we do not have organic food here
Right.
usually.
Right. Yes. Well, we traditionally used to have organic food.
Sorry.
Before, our regular food used to be organic food, right?
Yeah.
Till
Used to be.
It used to be, right? Till we got into this more processed food, and which is rich in trans fats, and those are the foods that you need to avoid.
Okay.
So switching more to a vegetarian diet or a healthy, meat-based diet would be, I think, essential.
Yeah.
And again, it has to be, balanced between fruits, vegetables, and meat.
Exactly, and I think that we actually need to talk about how the food is being cooked as well, because eventually if we are cooking broccoli and it looks like this, the flower of the broccoli, eventually when we'll cook it, it'll look like this. It'll be drenched in oil.
I thought it's supposed to be like that.
So we have a lot of, yeah, because, ever since we grew up, I think that's how we have eaten it,
True.
but there's another way of eating it, and we see it in the West as well, how they have this habit of eating raw vegetables and fruits, and how we are far, far away from it. Nihari on Sundays, and chane and parathe and puri and pature and
Right.
all of that. And since you're from
Yeah.
Lahore too as well, so
Right.
speak about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I share the same concerns as you do, that we have a very diet rich in fats and not the healthiest of these oils, and then that's a risk factor for not just breast cancer but also heart disease and stroke and all the other things. So we definitely need to move away from those diets, or maybe make it as infrequent as possible. Just reserve it for some special day, I guess.
Yeah.
But focus more on eating raw vegetables and salads and fruits. And the other aspect is also the exercise. We need to be more physically active. You mentioned that you are missing out on your gym.
Well, not now. When it was COVID times and everything was in lockdown.
Yes, we were all indoors, and rightly so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to get back up and going, and we need to develop some physical activity routine. It should be part of our routine. So again, the recommendations are again very broad and general. But 30 minutes of aerobic exercise 3 to 4 times a week is something you must
I think that
focus
this
on.
can be one of those reasons as well why Pakistan among South Asian countries is the highest rate of breast cancer, that women over here do not work out. And or fortunately or unfortunately, I think that they really do not get that environment where they could actually work out as well. Shiza, do you work out?
Yeah, I mean, okay, this is such a spotlight moment. Here's the thing, not regularly, but I'm going to speak on behalf of all the married Pakistani women, in generic. I think when you're talking about 24 hours in the kitchen, or jhadu pocha, or fixing your bed, or just, looking after things, that is workout for them. Cut them some slack. But yes, I think we need to have a proper
Right.
workout. But
That's no workout, man.
Shahzad,
After
we
jhadu
can-
pocha, they have backbone problems, they have thigh problems, muscle problems,
But
and
that's
whatnot.
the problem.
That's not the poster to work out, na. That's
So,
what
but
it is.
we can't call them lazy, or just sitting on the bed being a couch potato. That's not true. That's what I'm saying.
That's something I never said.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you need to look at the waist size. The
Yeah.
body height and body weight should be balanced.
Okay. Yeah.
That's one way to look at your whether you are appropriately physically active or not.
Yeah, and that's one thing I would love to comment on as well. Before marriage, I think everybody's just perfect looking, good looking, fitting in clothes and whatnot. As soon as you see, a girl's getting married, after the first baby, the girl has lost it all. And she's just over there at home, not working out, making sure that, I've got a baby to look after. I mean, I think everybody needs to look into themselves and make sure that they're not making an excuse to themselves. So, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I won't land anywhere good if I'm going to lie to my own self. Oh, you know what? I've worked hard for so long. I think it's my time to just take some rest. It is actually the destiny which you've reached through your working hard, and now it is your time to work more harder so that you can actually have another destiny to yourself.
Right.
But yeah,
I
very
have a
quickly, yeah, go ahead if you have a
Okay,
question.
I do have a question. Right, so we were talking about prevention, but now let's talk about treatment in case, God forbid, someone is going through it or has developed the cancer. What are the possible options? Is it always surgery? Should we always ask for surgery? What is the safest option? And then a lot of people are really paranoid about the side effects of the treatment they will be getting. Let's talk about it.
Right. Yeah. So the treatment of cancer is multidisciplinary. So it's a teamwork. So typically, a cancer specialist a team of cancer specialists will consist of a surgical oncologist who
Yes.
does the surgery, a medical oncologist who offers all the systemic therapies, and then the radiation oncologist who delivers radiotherapy. Now, the treatment depends on the stage and the type of breast cancer that you
Right.
have. So, for example, a stage 1 patient may just get a pill
Okay,
for the treatment and a small surgery. A stage 3 patient may get a very extensive surgery, chemotherapy, hormone therapy, radiotherapy, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
So, and then also, when I say about type of breast cancer, we know that there are 3 or 4 different types of breast cancer. So even if you have the same stage, you could have a different type of breast cancer that requires different type of drugs,
treatment, okay.
medicines.
Yeah.
So your duration of treatment could vary according to that. It could be up to 1 year to maybe like 4 months. So again, that needs to be hashed out with your oncologist. It's a very case by case basis. I can't give you a very generic
Yeah, I know.
answer.
Of course.
But it's a team effort with 2 or 3 different oncologists working together and each delivering their part of the treatment. Coming
Side
to yours, the side effect question. So I think that's quite real. I wouldn't diminish the importance that some of our patients go through significant side effects. So that's where you need to have a very good discussion and relationship with your oncologist. You give feedback about the treatment effects that you're experiencing,
All right.
and the treatment can be modified a little bit just to make it easier for you. And the oncologist will also discuss the risks and benefits involved with the modification of therapy.
Right, and it's always good for the patient to know what might be coming in the future, good or bad, right?
Right, yeah, so we always inform our patients of all the possible side effects, especially the commonest one that they're
Right,
most
right.
likely to experience. And we discuss the management of those side effects. So, for example, if somebody's having nausea and vomiting, there are medicines also provided to cater to those side effects as well.
Okay.
So you have an easier time going through that. And also, I think the support groups, they're also, they help with the psychosocial aspect of
Yes.
dealing with the trauma of, being diagnosed with this disease and, how it changes your life.
Absolutely.
So there are, there are resources available to help you manage these side effects and get through this.
I think that's wonderful and that's very reassuring as well. But if we are to look in terms of percentage, how many people do recover from breast cancer if they reach to the doctor in time?
Right, so that again varies by the stage of the disease that you are diagnosed at, and that's where it's critical that we diagnose it early as possible. So stage 1 patients, about 99 to 95% will
Wow.
be cured.
Mashallah.
Stage 2, about I would say 70 to 80%. Stage 3 is about 50%, and stage 4 is about 10 to 16%.
All right.
So these stages are there to provide you a prognosis, and the prognosis gets worse as the cancer gets more advanced, and that's why all our focus is on detecting it early, and being aware of the signs and symptoms, and being able to access those services if you have
Exactly.
any symptoms.
And usually what I've witnessed is that that women obviously when they're going through chemotherapy and surgery, they obviously the social dilemma you talked about as well, and how the society is going to accept them, and that's something which is for real as well. People do get upset.
Yeah.
And then, do you think that there's oral chemotherapy available in some cases of breast cancer as well?
Yes, absolutely. Certain drugs come in oral formulation, and some come in intravenous.
Yeah.
So depending on what your doctor feels is the best option for you, they will go according to that. There's again, it's a shared decision making at some level. Some patients may not want hair loss, for example.
Right.
So you could discuss with the doctor if there's any medicine which they could prefer or is available that will lead to less likelihood of hair loss, for example.
Exactly.
So options are there, yeah. So there are oral
Yeah,
medicines.
so the only reason why I asked you about oral medication or oral chemotherapy was that I happen to know a few people who actually, not very regularly, but quite oftenly, they do miss out on their oral chemotherapies because they are on
Yes.
themselves, and they have to decide it for themselves as well, and just at times they just forget on their medication.
Right.
So how lethal or how important it can be or how dangerous it can be for anybody to miss out on their medication?
Yeah, and my question is actually it's very similar to this as well.
Sure.
So, Dr. Hassan, I'm pretty sure you must have come across such people because I have from certain villages. So they are diagnosed with cancer some stage, whatever it may be, but they're not willing to be treated. And they, now I'm not questioning their belief system, but I have heard this. they take it as something from the divine, and they have to live with it. So, of course, is it from your end, being the doctor, is it a patient's choice to be treated or not? And in case someone says we don't want to be treated, what do you do in that case?
Right. I think that's a very complicated question because it
Right.
involves belief
Of
systems
course.
and as a doctor, I have to give my best opinion based on the evidence that we have.
But you can't force them after
But
all.
obviously, we don't force any treatment on any patient. However, if we feel that somebody's in denial, then we have resources like psychological services to help them overcome that denial. And maybe with those efforts, they will be more likely to get the treatment that would benefit them. But yes, to your question, yes, we do not force any treatment on any person. Everybody has this right of autonomy to choose. But again, not coming from a very religious perspective, but even my understanding is that even in our religion, seeking
Help for a
medicine
medical condition, yes.
right is actually recommended.
Of
So
course.
so I wouldn't think that the belief system should necessarily
Yes.
All right.
obstruct that access.
And how dangerous missing out on our oral chemotherapy
Right. So
dose?
so that's a very common scenario that I run into. Patients are not very compliant with their medication, especially if these are longer term medications. So we do routinely ask them that have they been taking their medicine regularly, have they missed out on their medicine recently. Again, it's education of the patient, reinforcement, discussing things again and again about the importance of taking the medicine. If they have any particular issues with that medicine, we discuss those issues and then try to address them. The efficacy is obviously reduced if you're not taking your medicine, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's.
And one last thing before we wrap up this segment, and that is that, obviously since we are talking about breast cancer, don't you think that we need more women in colleges coming into this field as well, so that women are more comfortable talking about the kind of problems they're facing?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that's a social aspect of our culture, and I think it's really embarrassing that we are missing out on a lot of women who could have been saved
Exactly.
if they were caught early or they sought out help early. I see a lot of people from rural areas which come to our hospital, and they have these type of issues that they sat on their tumors for too long, and whether there's hesitation or their priorities were different, so now they're more advanced and the outcomes are not as good. So yeah, I think the women and also the other society, we need to lead this effort that if this awareness about breast cancer and early detection should be on the top of our priority.
Exactly.
Right,
Thank you very
most
much, Dr. Saab,
definitely.
for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation. Thank you very much for highlighting the core issues, making sure that we know about the risks involved as well, and how to actually prevent having breast cancer as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to feel like a lump. And if you feel like one, just go to the doctor, rush to the doctor. The treatments are available, as Dr. Saab said. If you're on stage 1, there's 99 to 95% chance that you'll be good to go and you'll have a great life as well. So please make sure that you catch it within the first % or 10% of the disease as well. I think that everybody can do that. All you have to do is just touch yourself early in the morning whenever you're in the shower or wherever. If you feel that there's something wrong, just rush to the doctor.
Most definitely, because of course that is the first step. We pray and hope that everyone who is going through such a situation or has developed the condition or breast cancer specifically, we really hope the process gets easier for you. We hope and pray that you come out of it stronger and you don't have to deal with it anymore. And for everyone else out there, please be very careful of the lifestyle that you're adopting, because we really don't want to end up in that position.
Yeah.
Well, stay tuned, because in the next segment, we are going to wrap up this week in a very fun style. Stay tuned to find out. Good morning.
Good morning. Good.